This is the last episode of the first half of the season, with the second half's date yet having been announced. But for the first half of the season, I think it's going really well. However, I'm a little bit nervous due to the fact that, in my opinion, we're not even close to getting stuff wrapped up, and it feels like everything is just getting started, and I'm really nervous to how it's all going to wrap up in a neat little bow. Because I feel like there's so much going on right now with the whole space case, the Torminox, the Immortus plot, the Jane plot, the Fog plot, the 104 plot. There's so much happening right now. I don't know how they're going to wrap it up. But, yet again, I love the show, so I'm just going to try to put that fear aside and just go with it. The first character I want to talk about this episode is Rita. This season is really Rita's season. I think making her the main character is a great move, with the chief having been killed off. It also makes a lot of screen time just kind of be open now. And I think giving Rita that extra screen time is, in my opinion, a great move. As I think she is a great character who, in the comics, has never really found her footing. Yes, she's a good character in the comics, but a lot of times she's typically just the quote-unquote female member of the Doom Patrol. That's not the case here. She herself is a great character. And I also love seeing her and Rouge face off against their past together with Wally, who was a throwaway character last season, but was really being a seed that was planted. And I loved her reaction when she thought she killed him, because she generally thought she had killed Wally. Next, I want to talk about Vic. Vic, in my opinion, is a very strong character, and this season I think he has become an extremely strong character even without his powers. And when he got his powers taken away last season, personally, I will admit I was a little bit nervous, but I'm really enjoying the storyline. Although I think his friend is a little pushy, but I think they gave him some great banter with his friend, so I'm okay with it. And I did like that they made the robot, even if the robot didn't do anything, I did at least like seeing that they tried to use their imagination to fight the Scissor People, or the Scissor Men, as they're called in the comics. Next is Cliff. The first 5 episodes, Cliff was really just a sidekick, but I'm happy to say this episode, I think he got really much to do. The opening scene of him and Jane I thought was great with how they interacted and how they kind of just came back together in a way that I thought was very father and daughter-like. And also I couldn't believe that his Avamit was talking. And it gave me Elmo vibes, but like a savage Elmo, because he was very brutal and kept on roasting Cliff, which I could not believe. And the fact that Jane was also, in my opinion, I thought a very important character to Cliff in the moment, to the point where he was willing to actually be there for Jane and let her hold his hand. Meaning that, in a weird way, I know this might sound kind of stupid to say, but I think that might be a reference to how they have like a father-daughter connection, and that how he wanted to touch his grandson first, and that while Jane isn't, of course, his actual daughter, in ways she kind of feels like that to him, which I think was important to show in the moment, how he was generally just open to sacrificing that idea for her. I thought it made Cliff come across really sweet, because I know he likes to claim he's a bad person. Even in this episode he says he's a bad person, but I don't think he is. Yes, I think he was once, but I think he definitely has grown as a father, as a man, as a person all around. Next is Madame Rouge. I think her friendship with Rita coming back around this season is, in my opinion, a very, very strong storyline. And I also really like seeing them going from friends to enemies in Season 3, and now seeing them go from enemies to friends in Season 4. And I loved how they were supporting each other when they were going through the mission, how, like, at least once in a while, each character would be like, I'm done, I don't want to do this anymore, and the other one had to really just talk them into keep going, and keep fighting, keep on going, which I thought was a very nice touch to have them both do it to each other. As Rita supported Rouge and Rouge supported Rita, I thought it was important that they both supported each other, and it wasn't just a one-sided thing. Well, of course, people had different opinions, so maybe you would have liked it if maybe Rita didn't support Rouge, because I think some people would probably be upset that Rouge has been forgiven by Rita. But personally, I liked it. Next is Crazy Jane. Rita isn't the only one anymore who isn't aging. Although, like Rita, I think Jane doesn't really look old, except for maybe some gray hairs. Like, they said she's middle-aged now, but I don't really see that. I feel like she looks 30. Although I was scared she would have lost her powers at first, because I didn't want to see the underground go away, but luckily they're still around. Even if they're not really useful. Which, okay, they never really are, to be honest, but whatever. Personally, I think Jane is a very strong character, and I like seeing how she is trying to find herself in that she's always lived for other people, either that be Kay or other personas, but now she wants to figure out who she is. And I like the idea that she doesn't really understand how to do that, and a part of her really doesn't want to, but she knows she has to. Larry in this episode I also thought had a very strong B-plot, and I really like seeing him have a hero side, how he told 104 he would help him despite not even knowing anything about him. I also really like his connection between him and Keg, and how Keg was scared for Larry, knowing that Larry in the future would die in a way that wasn't exactly like the others. That being that he wasn't killed by zombie butts, but had his own life taken away from him by either Keg or Larry. I couldn't really tell which one it was that killed Larry. But it seemed more or less as a kind of like team thing. Like, Keg was the one who was saying like, oh, you have to die in order to, not murder everybody. While Larry was like, oh, okay. Which I think was also very much in character of Larry, that he, even though he doesn't want to admit it, he very much is a hero. Which is, in my opinion, something that is very interesting to see with how he tries to pretend that he doesn't care, but in reality, he very clearly does. Shelly's back, which you have no idea how happy that made me. I really like Shelly. And I like how she was decorating a cake when Jane walked in. I thought it really showed how the character, when she made that whole, like, old-fashioned sweet place, that she generally just likes it. Because I thought it was originally meant to be a whole situation where she was trying to tempt Kay into staying because she's a little girl. But it doesn't seem like that anymore. It seems more or less that she generally likes sweet food and like candy and stuff, which I think is a very funny idea. I also really like how respectful Shelly was to Jane and waited for her, not pushing. I thought it was important she tried to be there, but wasn't overly pushing her. She wasn't telling her, why are you not kissing me? Why are you holding back? But instead was understanding that Jane needed time, and I thought it was very mature of her to do that, because a lot of times love interests in superhero shows can be very pushy. Here, I like that she wasn't, instead was very understanding of Jane. And 104. I was just making a guess when I said I thought he was meant to be a love interest for Larry, which I guess I was correct, because Cliff all out pointed it out, and 104 all out didn't seem to be denying it, and instead implied that he was okay with the idea. As we already know that Larry is gay, we didn't know if 104 was not. Which this seems to imply that 104 is at least into guys. Which I think they are a very interesting couple, the idea that they are kind of on opposite sides, which is similar to that of the Shelly and Jane situation, but they're not on opposite sides currently. Instead, 104 and Larry are currently on opposite sides. And I also liked how they're holding hands and how, like, they seemed very close with how 104 can actually touch Larry. And yet again, I love seeing more of his powers. I love when he rushed to those scissors to save Larry and create that portal. I just think his powers are so cool. I know the character is typically a joke, but I really like his power set. I think they could be used much better than they've ever been in the comics. And that's it. Like always, please like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.